I'd also like to thank everyone's families because they support us and let us do what we love to do. So thank you very much to our extended families out there who make it possible for us to work our tails off making these great products for you.
Incredible when you see the career that Steve Jobs has had. I'm joined by Dan Simon, Sanjay Gupta, Andy Serwer from Managing Editor of Fortune Magazine, Leander Kahney, editor and publisher, cultofmac.com. Andy, we were talking while watching that. I mean, it is extraordinary when you just see it back to back and you suddenly remember, oh yeah, the candy-colored Mac, iMacs. I forgot about those. And you knew him. I mean, you interacted with him. Right. Sometimes volatilely.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing that I was reminded of when I saw that tape piece was he's a master marketer, Anderson.
His presentations are incredible.
Incredible, and set the bar for that, and just another accomplishment of his. But on a personal level, interacting with him, could be fraught. He had a very certain purpose when he met with you, and something he wanted to accomplish, and he did what it took to get things done. And sometimes he would yell at me.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He would very, very forcefully tell me what he thought of me in some very colorful language, either in person or on the phone. And
what's it like to be yelled at by Steve Jobs?
Well, what really interesting thing, Anderson, is when you get this phone call, and it could be anywhere, anytime, and the phone call will go like this: Andy, and be this pause. Steve Jobs. And he said it very self-consciously, and he'd be like, whoa, Steve Jobs on the line. And then he'd say, and one time I remember he'd say, if you don't do this, I am going to be so ticked, and then on, and just kind of ranting at you right away. Another time he would call you up and say, this thing's really good, you're on track. But, it was, when he wanted to reach out to someone personally, he would do it, and there would be in no uncertain terms how he felt about it, and, he would get in your face sometimes. And he was a powerful person.
Yeah.
A powerful person. You don't mess with him. You can mess with him, but you'd have to be sure of your footing as well.
Leander Kahney, the editor and publisher of cultofmac.com, is also with us on the phone. Leander, when he took over Pixar, it wasn't really at the level that, I mean, he very quickly had major successes with it once he took it over, right?
No, it took years for Pixar to get off the ground, or even just to find a business model. He poured in about $60 million
I didn't realize
of his own money, to keep it afloat. I mean, they struggled from one thing to another. He tried to remake Pixar originally as a kind of next. They were selling a high-end workstation that ran special animation software. They were trying to sell it to the movie industry. And that didn't really take off. So then they just started selling the software on its own, and they started trying to sell, sort of services. They ended up selling, making nice ads, special effects for TV advertisements. And they did a couple of demos. John Lasseter did one, and it was such a hit. Disney said they would finance some movies. He wanted to make some movies, so he went to Hollywood and he took a 2-week screenwriting course, and that led to Toy Story.
Are you serious? Really? After he took a 2-week Hollywood screenwriting course. That's funny.
Yeah, they fumbled around for a long time, but they had a series of layoffs, and this is part of what Jobs does well, is that he kept on the sort of core team of creatives there. So they hired and then they fired, and they struggled and they stumbled from one thing to another, but he always believed in John Lasseter and Ed Catmull and the other guys that run that company, and he kept them on no matter what, until they found what they were good at. And the funny thing is that Pixar is very similar to Apple. Pixar has had an unprecedented run of 12 blockbuster movies, and they're all made by this sort of small, cohesive team of creatives who all work on one movie at a time. They all work on it together. Everybody who's involved in it, the marketing team, the directors, the animators, and they polish it. And if they come, and they often come to a problem, and they'll often scrap it and start again. And this is exactly the same way that Apple works. They have a sort of smallish team of designers and programmers. They all work together on one product and one product only. And if they come to a stumbling block, they often scrap it and start over again. And this is one of the reasons why I feel optimistic about Apple's future, is because this creative process is so powerful.
What do you think, Andy, it was that drove Steve Jobs? I mean, what drives somebody to create something at 21 and then continue to just, never resting on his laurels, never taking the foot off the pedal, just continuing to innovate.
It was this personal ambition to show the world that he was right, that he had, I keep going back to this word taste. And it was the biggest insult he could ever say to you, is that you have bad taste. But he meant that in a holistic way, that you had no taste when it comes to making phones, or making television, or making movies, or making retailing, making stores. So he always
because that is something that's so striking. I mean, the beauty of
everything,
the products, the beauty of the store.
Right.
I mean, even the look of him on that stage is very thought out.
He's a perfectionist. Yeah, those presentations, orchestration, Anderson, is the word. He'd orchestrate everything. And the product launches, we were just saying the small teams, that's true. But, you know, Apple's become a huge company. So to orchestrate a product launch of the iPad on a global scale like that is incredible. I mean, you have all these iPads made. You don't let anyone know. You have a presentation in San Francisco that's totally secret until the moment it happens, and then you spring it on the world, and then a few days later there are these new devices, brand new devices, in stores all around the world, or at least all around the country initially, right away, and they work perfectly. I mean, you know, and it's amazing. They're all coming from China, they're being made, they work, they're connected to software that works seamlessly. I mean, these accomplishments in terms of supply chain, which is kind of business geek talk, but just making everything work like that, trust me, it's incredibly complicated.
Yeah, I can't even really imagine. On the phone is Stephen Levy, the Wired magazine senior writer. He's interviewed Jobs many times. You know, Steve, we've been talking for now 40 minutes about him and learning new things along the way. I mean, what are your thoughts this evening, this very sad evening?
Well, you know, spectacularly sad. You know, there was no one else like him. There were 6 things he did, at least in his career, any one of which would have been, you know, absolutely remarkable. You know, you could just tick them off: the Apple II, you know, the Macintosh, Pixar, the iPhone, the iPod, of course, and you know, who knows how many more he would have done.
What do you think, and I was just asking Andy this question, what do you think was his drive? I mean, you know, a lot of people think people are driven by money. He clearly had more than enough money than he would ever use. What do you think it was that pushed him?
Well, no, it certainly wasn't money. I think, you know, he was just electrified at the power you can get to change the world with this technology there. You have to understand, he was of the generation that was affected by the 60s. There was something a little dirty about business for people who grew up in that era there. And what he did was he applied this, you know, field of technology, which could do things, you know, allow people to do things they could never do before, and you know, and merge the idealism of the '60s with business by use of that technology. And he added, you know, this element of, you know, art to it as well. And you know, in later life, he really was able to explain it by talking about how, you know, he could merge technology and the liberal arts. But there was, you know, a rebel aspect to it, and you really saw that when he came out with the Macintosh, as he spurred his team on by calling them pirates, and I think that really was his happiest time producing a product, because he had this team that, against all odds, came up with something that did change the world. As he said, it put a dent in the universe.
You know, one thing I think to add on to that point that Steve just made is that for many decades, Anderson, technology was all about business, and it was all about, you know, guys in suits and in rooms with giant computers. And if you think about when Apple really hit its stride, it moved technology from business people to consumers. Okay, so right now, consumer technology is at the fore. In fact, consumer technology is what's driving the technology world, not business technology. We're all using sort of old PCs at work, whereas we have these really cool iPhones, iPads, and these kind of gadgets at work. And then you come to work with these things and you say, how come my consumer technology is so much better than my business technology? And that's in large part because of Steve Jobs and Apple.
We want to talk about the illness that he was facing with Dr. Sanjay Gupta in just a moment. This is on Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook page, the founder of Facebook, creator of Facebook. Steve, thank you for being a mentor.